Today, I'm going to show you 10 tools that are fairly inexpensive, but are also really unique. They're tools that I think are definitely worth taking a look at, and I will be sure and put links for everything down in the description below. So let's get started. First up, we're going to start with safety. Now, these are not just regular old earmuffs. Now, your hearing is extremely important. I actually have ringing in my right ear, and I've had it for the last 2 or 3 years. It's not super terrible, but it's obviously something that you don't want to have happen to you. I don't necessarily know that it happened from something in the shop. It just one day it just kind of happened. So I take hearing protection pretty serious when I'm in the shop, especially nowadays. The thing that I like about these is that I don't feel isolated when I wear these because these are electronic earmuffs. And so you just take a AA battery, put in these bad boys, and then you can turn these on or off right here with this little knob here. And again, we're not feeling so isolated like you do with a lot of different type hearing protection in the shop. I don't like that. I don't like the potential for somebody to walk in and startle me when I'm running a piece of machinery or something. And for that reason, my table saw actually faces the door that comes into my shop just to kind of help prevent some of that from happening. So this is definitely worth your time. These are actually from Harbor Freight, so not really going to be something that you're going to be able to pick up online. But it's definitely worth going into a Harbor Freight and picking these up. When I bought these were about 15 bucks. I'm going to assume they're still fairly in that same ballpark. But again, definitely give these a look, electronic earmuffs. Next up, we're going to go into table saw accessories. Now, this is what's called a thin rip jig. And the thing that I love about this is because when you're cutting thin pieces on a table saw, it can get a little dicey when you're cutting stuff up and it's, you're going down into that 1/4 inch range. It's hard to get in there with a push stick. You can use things like a micro jig gripper or something like that. That helps, but again, it's still a little bit kind of unsafe. This allows you to cut on the left side of the blade. And what ends up happening is you're going to run this and drop this into the miter slot on your table saw on the left-hand side. And then you've got this little turn knob here that we can turn and we can adjust, and we can bring this either however far, however close we want to go to the blade, depending upon where we want to make our cut, how thin we want our cut to be. We've got a roller here, so the stock runs against that roller and runs right up into that thing. And it works very, very well. And again, this makes it very safe. The only difference is that each time that you make the cut, you've got to move your fence over, bump it against this, and then make your next cut. Bump it against this, make your next cut. That's it. It's a really, really good tool. It's a really, really good accessory. I highly recommend these. These are absolutely great. Continuing on with the table saw, we've got the digital angle gauge. Now, this one's from Klein. There are other brands out there. I've just got this one because I'm a Klein guy. I do a lot of electrical work, so it works great. And what it allows you to do, it's magnetic here on the base, so you can take this, drop it on the base of your table saw, and then you're able to zero it out against the base of your table saw, then throw it on the blade, and then make sure you're setting a perfect 90. It's great for that. It's also great for if you ever need to make a 45, if you ever need to make any kind of other cuts like that. You've got that gauge that's on the side of your table saw. Well, let's just be honest, that's not super accurate. This definitely will help you dial that in perfectly. Nobody likes sanding, but it's one of those things that we've actually got to do. And this is actually what's called an edge sander from Milescraft. And you can take a piece of sandpaper and you can kind of round it in your hand and you can sand edges of boards and things like that. Totally fine, it works, but this already has the profile built in and you can use it with your 5-inch hook and loop sandpaper for your random orbital sander. It's a fantastic idea and it works really, really well. And the big reason, if you don't know this, one of the big reasons that you want to sand anything, especially when it comes to those edges, is because if you're going to paint something, a lot of times you want to knock those sharp edges down, because if you don't do that, they're actually going to not take paint very well, and that's going to be one of the first places it's going to start to peel. So using a edge profile sander like this makes life very simple. This thing's like $7 or $8. Definitely pick one up. I cannot say enough good things about this. Continuing on with sanding, we're going to go into, this is a cute little accessory here that actually clamps on the side of your workbench, and then you're able to take and put your sanding hose through this and then loop it and hook it around your sanding hose. Grab this sander here, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. If you've ever done this, one of the problems that you run into with your vacuum hose being attached is the weight of the vacuum hose tends to try to pull it off the workbench. Well, you can put this clamp on, take this little rubber strap and run it around, and then you're able to sand, and you can set this wherever you need to set it, however you need to set it. If I want to move this to one end or whatever, I can do whatever. If I need to give myself more slack in here, I can do that and then hook it. It just snaps in really, really quickly. And again, it just prevents the weight of this hose from pulling down and just you're constantly fighting that. So it's a great little accessory to look into getting. You get these a lot of times from Rockler and they come in a pack of 2. I will link them up if it's something that you're interested in. The next tool is fairly simple, fairly small. These are also from Rockler, but these are 1/2-inch corner clamps, and they're not super crazy, like they're not like the woodpecker style or anything like that. These are actually just a friction fit. The thing that I love about these is these work perfect whenever I'm doing any kind of work with like building drawer boxes, for example. When I have to take 2 pieces of 1/2-inch material and put them together, I can use this as a friction fit right there. It will be that kind of that third hand that I need when I'm working to just hold everything in place so that I can put a pocket screw in it, I can put a finish nail in it, whatever I need to do, especially when I've got the other sides. I didn't have 4 small pieces, so I've got kind of 2 long pieces here that I've got strung out to show you how this works. But these are incredibly handy, and the number one thing that I use them for is for drawer boxes. Now, I bought a set of 3/4 as well. I honestly haven't used the 3/4 because I've already got the other corner clamps from Woodpeckers, but I would say, you know, if you were doing 3/4 drawers or just anything else, they'd come in handy for things like that as well. But for me, the 1/2-inch is where it's at, especially when you're building drawer boxes. Now, you've probably used a nail set of some kind at some point, and it usually takes a hammer and kind of a nail set that kind of looks like a punch. Those work totally fine. The thing that I love about this is a little bit different in that I don't actually have to have a hammer. This is from Spring Tools, and it's actually a spring-loaded nail set. This thing is fantastic. This is all I use anymore when it comes to setting nails, but this will set pretty much any nail that sets above the surface when you're dealing with finished nails and things like that. Obviously, you wouldn't use it on a framing nail, but for something like finished nails, this thing is perfect. It's from Spring Tools. Definitely pick one of these up if you don't have one. Next up is another tool from Rockler. These are super cool. They're probably the most expensive, but they are a pack of 12, and these are called the SureHook 360. And the way these work, these are actually for your cabinet doors whenever you're painting them. So you take this piece here, and you're gonna put this in the hinge hole on this end. And then you're going to push this down like this, and when you do that, it opens that up and holds that in there. And now you can hang your door like this. You can hang your door up on some kind of a rod or whatever you do whenever you're going to do painting. It allows you to be able to paint both sides of your door, speeding up your painting process a whole lot. Because if you ever painted a lot of stuff like that, you know that it just takes some time if you've got to do one side and then let it set and then flip it and do the other side and then let it set and flip it, yada, yada, yada. It takes a long time. But again, these are very good. The way that they work, again, you drop them in there, and once you do that, they're locked in place. That takes them back out. Perfect tool, probably the most expensive one. So far, I've used them on some cabinet doors that I just recently did for the first time. And I love these things. Most of mine are all white now because I've been using them, but great tool. Next up is zero clearance tape from FastCap. Now, if you ever use your miter saw, you know that there's not typically a true zero clearance insert in that in your saw. And what ends up happening is a lot of times you end up with chips and strips and stuff that fall down in there, but you also end up with a lot of tear out a lot of times because you don't have a true zero clearance insert in there. Now, you can buy inserts that people make on Etsy and stuff. You can also make your own insert if you wanted to do that. But this is a $10 alternative. You got 5 of them here, so you could throw one on your table saw and do the exact same thing. But this is like a poly feeling tape, and then it's just super sticky on the back. So you're just gonna peel the film off, and then you're gonna attach it. And this works super well. It's very cool. It's a great idea. I highly recommend checking this out, especially if you don't want to spend the money to buy something or if you just don't have the time to make your own. Over the last few years, we've done a lot of remodeling in our house, and whenever I'm pulling up trim, I always just use a regular old crowbar. And it works, except every once in a while I've been known to break through the drywall and then create myself another job. This last year, I bought a dedicated trim puller, and I should have bought this a long time ago, but I'm a tightwad. And the big difference is that it's a lot wider than a regular crowbar. And so you're actually spreading out the force on the drywall when you're pulling up that trim. Works the same way. Hammer this in just like you would a crowbar or whatever, but it's fantastic. Now I picked this one up at Lowe's. It's a Cobalt brand. If you don't have a Lowe's near you, I'll go ahead and I'll link up something comparable down in the description below. Also, if you're doing any kind of remodeling, we've remodeled every single room in our house, and I will queue up a video next that shows you everything that I've learned along the way.